Do you need some tips on giving feedback? You know the importance of communication skills, yet do you find yourself anytime somebody asks you for feedback going to the extremes, either of being brutal or not giving them anything? Once I started learning to give feedback the right way, not only did people start to understand me better, I actually got jobs because of it. We're creative. Our taste is, in a way, everything about us. So I'm going to give you 5 ways to give better feedback instantly after this.
Seize the sword.
Welcome to Creativity Control. I'm your guide, Michael Gilboe, and I'm so glad you're here today, where I teach you about all those things you just didn't get enough of in school in dealing with a creative life. Things like purpose, practice, productivity, and promotion. And today, we're going to talk about practice. Why is this part of practice? Well, if you do it right, the analysis you give it is actually good practice for your own skill set. Before we get going, why don't you put down in the comments below, are you in general comfortable with giving other people criticism and feedback? Or is this something you don't like to do? In either case, I bet you got a couple things in here that are going to help you out. All right, so let's get going with my 5 tips for giving better feedback. Number 1, don't give feedback unless you care about the person or project. Just don't give it. That's the first step to giving good feedback, is caring. I always take the picture of, would I like to work on this project or with this person? If the answer is yes to either of those, I look for ways to give good quality criticism or feedback. So for instance, I went to go see a workshop of an Oscar-winning documentary filmmaker's musical. And there were a lot of things to like, but I also saw a lot of issues, and I knew how they could help. So I emailed him, and I asked him if he would appreciate some feedback. And he said yes, and I wrote out like 3 pages. He contacted me back, and he said these were by far the best story notes he had ever gotten in any meeting, and promptly proceeded to hire me to record the whole cast album for his musical. And for other feedback along the way with his show, and ended up becoming a reference for my job at the University of Providence. Your heart is in the right place if you care about the person or project. If you don't like either one, really, you're not invested, and you are just being snide to give them a comment. Number 2, critique the project they want, not the one you want. You understand what I mean here? How many times have you gotten a piece of feedback that's along the lines of, well, it's a nice scenic painting, but I would have put more sunlight in. Or it's a great story, but I would have made it more humorous. Okay, these are the most unhelpful of comments, because all you are doing is imposing your own taste, your own views, and not really offering what they want. So the first step is try to come at it from the standpoint of what they want. If they're wanting to do a horror film, don't critique it like they should try to do something else. Try to come at it from the attitude that you want to help them make a better horror film. This again kind of follows 2 rules. If you don't like horror films, but you like the person, absolutely try to find those comments that could help. But make it about their project, not the one you would do if you had control. Numero 3, ask questions. Is this what you were going for? Asking questions is a great way of giving feedback, because it's a soft sell way of, now don't ask questions in lieu of a snide comment. Did you want the protagonist to be unlikable? That is just a question coming off as a criticism. But you can say, I didn't see a connection between what happened here and then what happened here. Is that purposeful? That's an honest thing. And it's something they can actually think about. Did they want that to happen or not? Was there a reason you used this? What was the goal of this? Okay, these questions can give it how you interpreted it and let the creator decide if that is what they were truly going for. Number 4, if then. This is kind of reverse on the question. And this is again pointing in how much you're guessing right on what they want. For instance, you could say, well, if your intent is for a scary horror film, maybe you want to hold back on revealing the killer and let the suspense build the narrative. Or if you are trying to make a comedic horror film, maybe this character could have something else that inspires some humor. And then they can say, well, no, actually, I wasn't going for humorous. And you haven't given them a bad comment in the way that if you had just tried to make it the project you want. They understand that you're at least reaching for what you think they want, and the fact that you maybe guessed it wrong is a critique in itself. Number 5. And this one I personally use, and it has worked for me. But I do know in a lot of critique-giving workshops, they say don't do this. There's a lot of people that say don't prescribe. I personally both appreciate and like giving a solution. Now, the trick for me is I let them know that I don't want any credit for this, if it's outside the realms of a workshop where that's just assumed. And B, I just offer it. I try to say, maybe this inspires you to something else. So I might say, hey, one thing that could work is the lead character falling down the stairs. I mean, maybe that isn't what you want. Maybe that inspires you in a brainstorm something else. But that's just one idea I had that might fix this issue I saw. This, I think, for me is the key issue of what has gotten me work. When we deal with creative project, there's a lot of teams. And if I approach the suggestion in a right way, they can see that I am going to give that in a right way. That was number 5. I call it the free of charge suggestion. It kind of falls in the realm, I think a lot of us feel frustrated when somebody thinks they can offer up all these critiques and yet offer no solution. You just got to feel out what you think the other person would appreciate, and if that is something they would indeed like. So hopefully those tips help you out the next time you need to give some feedback. They're really powerful, and they're really good ways to consciously think about what you want. Another bonus tip is tell the person up front, you don't need to respond to anything I'm telling you. We'll get into this in our part 2 of this, where I talk to you about how to take feedback. But a couple quotes that I found on feedback that are just wonderful. From Michelle Richmond. And if you've ever been at a critique table, you probably recognize this person in yourself or in someone else. Michelle Richmond says, "It's rather disconcerting to sit around a table in a critique of someone else's work, only to realize that the antagonist in the story is none other than yourself, and that no one present thinks you're a very likable character." I think we can agree with that. Another one from Frank A. Clark. "Criticism, like rain, should be gentle enough to nourish a man's growth without destroying his roots." So it is assignment time. This is a couple quick parts. Number 1 of this assignment, I want you to list people who have asked you for critique, that you have given it to them, that according to rule 1, you didn't care, that you shouldn't have. This I don't expect you to share in our comments. But it is good to know, how many people have you given feedback to that just don't meet that first criteria? Number 2, think back to some of the people you have given criticism to that you do care about, that you broke one of these rules and it resulted in them interpreting the criticism in a way you didn't mean. Okay, so again, who did you break the principal rule? Who didn't you care about? And 2, can you think of a moment that would have benefited by using one of the tips I have below? All right, so if you like what we're doing here, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. The channel is brand new, so your help is really encouraged at this point. spread the word. Also, if you tell a friend and try to go through this route of improvement with them, you can hold each other accountable. And holding each other accountable is the best way to move forward. So, until the next time, I'm Michael Gilboe, and stay creative. Does it feel